Hi guys, wee Bob here, and today I'm going to take you through Autodesk Sketchbook Pro. It's no longer Autodesk from what I know, and I'm going to show you some of the tools that I used to create this portrait you can see on the screen. The finishing touches going on it just now, and we're going to go right back to the beginning, and I'm going to take you through the whole process of me drawing this. It is speeded up a wee bit, just for time's sake, and let's get on with it. So initially I used this reference you can see down in the bottom corner. This is what I was using. I was eyeballing it, I wasn't measuring from it, I'm just looking at it and trying to kind of use it as a reference photo, not to copy it, but just to take the features and the shadows and the structure of the face and trying to mimic it in Sketchbook Pro. $19.99, I mean, it's a crazy price, it's brilliant. I know it was free, I believe they're trying to get it free again. I'm not bothered really about paying $20 for this product, it's amazing. So as I said, I'm just setting out the structure as I see it with my eyes. I've been trying to do this Riley method recently, where I'm doing a kind of structured approach to how the head looks and the proportions, and you'll see later on that I could maybe have done with using this method, but it just wasn't, it doesn't work for me at the moment. I struggle to get my flow going, and I would call it a flow when my brain is in the mood for art. I just go, and if I overthink it, it annoys me, and it just makes me not want to draw because it's too structured. Whereas if I'm just looking and I'm trying stuff and I'm seeing what it looks like and I'm sculpting the drawing, that's the way I seem to be able to draw and get into the method of it, because I've really been put off recently by trying to follow methodologies too rigidly, and this was a nice kind of just, I'm going to go sit down and draw. I wasn't planning a tutorial, just when I saw the end product I thought, why not do a tutorial on Autodesk. So I'm still learning Autodesk, so this very much has a beginner's guide. You've got the brush libraries, it's just a lovely setup. My last video, which I'll link, you can go watch that, where I talk about some of the features within it, but this tutorial is mainly to do with the portrait drawing. So I'm using an art pencil, which is one of the standard built-in pencils. Default settings, I don't think I've changed any of the settings on this, so using that to sketch out my face, which as you can see is quite a thin face, and I rectify that later on. So once I've got the line art kind of done, I then start looking at where the shadows fall, and again I'm looking at my reference photo to see where I think the shadows are. And this was a bit of a new process for me in Sketchbook. How do I do this? Because I'm that used to doing it in Photoshop that you've got to kind of relearn some of the skills, but it kind of comes to you once you learn and get the brush that you want to use. And I found this conceptual brush which seemed to kind of do what I wanted it to do, and then I had a wee bit of difficulty actually trying to blend it because I hadn't done any real blending in it. But what Sketchbook Pro comes with is these colorless brushes, which is kind of like a blending brush. It's not getting any colour, it's not laying any colour down on the canvas, it's just taking what is already there and kind of shuffling it around a bit, which helped me to smooth off some of my edges so that they weren't as sharp. And so yeah, I was using the airbrush as well, because the airbrush is a soft transition, it's not that hard edge where you can see structure. If you look at the top of the nose, there's a hard dark to light transition there, and it happens really sharp, whereas with the airbrush on the cheeks it's more of a smooth transition to show more of a smooth surface rather than this kind of harsh. You also want to focus on where the shadows lie on the face. Look at your reference photos. If you look under the nose casts a shadow. There's the bridge of the nose, and under the eyes where the head changes shape. If you look at the Yazaro planes of the head, it really will help you figure out the structure. I'm still learning it a bit more, especially around the cheek area and as it transitions into the mouth area. But yeah, I just really was enjoying using Sketchbook Pro to come up with this kind of art. I wasn't really sure where I was going with the drawing, then started using this kind of calligraphy brush to give some kind of contrast to the background and then try and shape the hair. I was thinking at this point maybe I'll go with a hooded figure, which I quite like, hooded. Doing hooded figures. Did one with Mission Impossible. Again, you might go and see that one. That was drawn in Photoshop from memory, or it may have been Clip Studio. So for the portrait, we're just looking at the lights and the shadows. As you can see, I'm doing this in grayscale, and one of the techniques I'll show you a wee bit later on will be how to colour using layers in Autodesk Sketchbook Pro. I know I keep calling it Autodesk. I don't actually know whether they've removed the Autodesk, I presume they have. I was trying to get the eyes right here. There's a good symmetry feature which I've shown again in that previous video, which you can go and check out. The symmetry feature might help you with doing eyes. I like to try and do them independently because I like to keep a method that mimics what you would do on a piece of paper and not use too many of the fancy features that you get with digital art. I do like digital art from the point of view that if I make a mistake or something's not working, I can just change it, and it's one of the real big advantages. And I mean, for $20, this program is astounding, to be honest with you. I know it works on mobile apps and iPads, I believe, as well. There's Procreate, I believe, for the iPad. I don't have an iPad. I use my Huion Canvas Pro 22 with the drawing stylus. So yeah, we're just kind of going over the lights and the shadows of the face, looking at where the reflections are. I actually made a mistake here because on the nose I put the reflection to the wrong side. It should have been over to the right, and I put it over to the left. It should have been on the same side as the lip reflection, because that would make more sense. So as you can see, I've made a few layers. The plus sign at the top left hand side is how you make a new layer. You can see it's a normal layer, and later on I'll show you me using a different type of layer. You can merge layers using the 3 slashes on the menu, and you can duplicate layers in there as well, which is something I do throughout my process, where I've got to a point in the drawing and I'm like, okay, I'm happy with where I am just now. I'm going to copy all the layers and keep that as almost like a stage progress of my drawing, rather than maybe making a big mistake later on and then I can't revert back to where I was actually quite happy with the drawing. I've done that in the past. It's a mistake I've learned from using Photoshop. Again, I'm just trying to get my lines correct here, my shadows. What kind of style am I going for? Am I going for a more realistic style without any kind of outlining, and trying to determine where the shadows sit. So normally when I'm using Photoshop, I would use just kind of 1 or 2 brushes. I have been using more brushes in Sketchbook Pro just to see what does what do I like, what do I not like. And the great thing is you can actually pull your favourite brushes into the kind of basic brush set. You can duplicate the brush and you can pull it across. And at this point I'm looking at, okay, I've got the kind of structure of my face correct, I've got the kind of flow of what my composition is going to be, and I'm going to start adding some colour, making sure that the values are correct, so to show the depth of the image that I feel is correct as well. So with hair, you kind of want to segment hair into big sections. In this drawing at the beginning, I just started doing lots of lines, and that's not really how you want to draw hair. You really want bigger sectional areas for hair. I was trying to add a wee bit of flair by some kind of squiggly lines, just messing around, trying out different things, because Sketchbook Pro is a new program to me. It's not something I've used really in the past. I think I did have a shot of it many years ago on my mobile, but I haven't used it. I've been using Photoshop primarily. At this point I jumped, and as you can see, she looks bald, but the face was too thin and I had to fix it. Now, to fix it, I seem to have not have recorded that section, but you would highlight and you would stretch using the selection tools. So as you can see, my hair's very almost individual drawing, and you shouldn't really draw hair with individual strands. You want to try and get your hair to be a big chunk, a big strand, and then add features to it, minimal features to make it look like hair. You don't want just strands of hair. It almost looks like straw stuck to their heads. So I wasn't happy at this point. I mean, it's got a certain artistic style to it. You could, if that's the kind of look you're wanting to go with, then definitely try and draw every hair. But for me, I usually like to try and take a chunk of hair and then add the features to make it look like hair. I might do a tutorial on that at some point as well. Working on the lips and adding obviously a bit of colour here. But you're just trying to sculpt the face, and if you look at the dip between the lips and the nose, you don't want it to be too defined, because then it looks just like a big divot out of their face. and it's almost a wee bit too defined at this point. I don't know whether I kind of smooth that out a bit more. There's also this white line above the lips, and as you see where the nose folds come in, I'm coming off with the cheeks. Again, the more defined you do these lines on the face, the more aged the person looks, because a young person has nice smooth skin, and if you add a lot of lines, you actually add in the lines of what an older person would look like. So if you try to draw somebody old, you really want to be looking at the adding more lines to the eyes and underneath the eyes, crow's feet coming off the edge of the eyes, and that will then bring some age to your character. I was kind of just looking to do a younger person here. At this point I'm trying to learn how to do colouring in Sketchbook Pro, and I started doing this kind of new layer, but you end up covering over the grayscales that you've kind of worked on, and so I did a new layer and I then called it a soft light layer, and then chose a kind of orangey kind of skin colour, and as you can see it works really well. It keeps all your contours, but it gives it the colour that you're looking for. So easy to do. I mean, that took about 30 seconds to colour the face in, as opposed to trying to do it on top, where you're then covering over your grayscale values. And so that's a new layer. Just add it, turn it on, turn it off. You use that little eye symbol next to the layer to do that, turn it on and turn it off. At the top of the head you do want some strands coming off the head to show the hair. That's a kind of technique I found. Mine's a wee bit kind of too thick and too defined. I haven't found the correct brush at this point. That'll take a wee bit more getting used to the program to learn how to get those little brush strokes that I would normally have put in. I'm not really using any fancy things here. I mean, the biggest thing about the portrait drawing is the sculpting of the face, which in this case is okay. It needs kind of defined a bit better. You should probably do that at the grayscale stage before you colour it. But that's why I'm saying it depends how you do your art, and I don't think you should try and limit yourself. You've got to really find what works for you, but also you've got to progress and not just stick with what you're comfortable with. Push yourself out of your comfort zone, which is what I've been trying to do with the Riley method and the Loomis method recently. Really try to push myself out of my comfort zone, but it's really struggling with it, and I'm trying to find how to do that, but it shouldn't stop me enjoying drawing, and I found that it was. So I thought, okay, let's just revert back to trying to do this by eye. And there's some issues with this in terms of the eye size, which I'll show you later on, because you can flip the image under the image menu screen. The right eye is too small and needs to be made bigger, which is something I needed to correct. I haven't really got my brush set down for portrait drawing yet. I was just kind of jumping between lots of different brushes and trying different things. Like I say, once you get to the point where you know the program, you'll learn the brushes that work for you. You'll start maybe even naming them something different, and that's just time. That just takes time, and not panicking about it too much. Struggled a wee bit with her lips, and I think part of the reason was that her top lip was almost bigger than the bottom lip, and that shouldn't really be the case. So at a later point I actually made the top lip smaller. I was thinking about adding teeth in at one point, and no, teeth are difficult enough to add in, so I went back to kind of closed mouth. You'll find that with portrait drawing, and again you've really got to try and push yourself out of that comfort zone. So the main tools I've used during this are really just the brushes. I'm really just moving the brushes around. I do have several layers, and I don't have any kind of structure to my layers. I use layers other than that soft light layer that's where the skin tone was coming in. I try to I don't really have a structure to my layering system. So I'm just going to let the drawing play forward for a bit. All I'm really doing is making the girl look like she's underwater and her face is coming out of the water, is the way I decided to go with this drawing. And then I decided to put almost like a pit next to her, and I'm going to let you decide what that means. I had my own thoughts in my head when I was drawing it. I don't always know why I draw particular things. It's just a certain idea pops into my brain and I draw it. I like people to try and come up with their own thought process on what the drawing is showing. I decided to flip this upside down. To me it looked a lot better straight off the bat, upside down. I wasn't as annoyed with the drawing, and it kind of gave that bit of a difference that might capture somebody's attention. I was using some of the blurring tools, so the little teardrop tool, to do the under the water, to blur off her top and her neckline area. So that was done using the blur tool. And then I was starting to draw some bubbles. Bubbles really are just a left hand C and a right hand C. You can make them a bit more complicated if you want, but for the vast majority of the things I do, it's just that big C in the left, small C in the right, sometimes with a reflection in there as well. I started drawing this kind of structure below her using the ruler, as you can see, using a 1 point to begin with, and then I decided to try doing it as a 2 point, and then I kind of just free flowed it because it wasn't exactly doing what I wanted it to do. The rulers work great, it's nothing to do with the actual rulers working. I was just, at this point I was like, okay, what do I want to draw here? It wasn't so much that the tools were failing me, it was more just that my brain was like, okay, what is it you're trying to portray? And it was meant to be a kind of tower block or something sinking to a point in space using perspective, almost like she's lying near the edge of something, she's underwater. It's just to kind of add a bit of mystery to the drawing, and it's what came out of my brain. And yeah, at this point I was quite happy. I was actually just adding the kind of finishing touches to the drawing. But this is my first kind of portrait drawing on Sketchbook Pro. Sketchbook Pro to me is a great drawing package, and I'm going to continue using it. Thank you very much for watching. It's been a bit of a longer one. If you've got value out of this, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the wee bell notification if you want to see more like this. If you don't, no worries, but it does help my channel if it's something that you're interested in. And there are going to be more Sketchbook Pro videos coming up, more tutorials. It's going to be something I'm working on. There's going to be specifically drawing, technical drawings would be one of the ones I'd like to get into, because I do technical drawing in my real life. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it. And Wee Bob is out. Cheers. Bye.